2022, Toronto police responded when the remains of a young girl were found in a dumpster on Dale Avenue. She was unidentified, and after a post-mortem examination conducted by Ontario Forensic Pathology Services, her cause of death was undetermined. Investigators from both 53 Division and the Homicide and Missing Persons Unit have been working tirelessly for over a year to identify the little girl. Outstanding missing persons occurrences were reviewed, dozens of tips were investigated, and the process of identification through DNA and genetic genealogy was commenced. The response from the community was tremendous. Thanks to a tip from the community and some great work by investigators and the Center of Forensic Sciences, I can now identify this little girl as Niveah Tucker of Toronto, N-E-V-E-A-H. Niveah was born on May 18, 2017. As previously stated, we believe that Niveah died in 2021. She would have been just shy of her 5th birthday when her body was placed in the dumpster. We have a lot of work to do. We will continue to work closely with our partners to investigate the circumstances leading up to Niveah's death and the subsequent disposal of her body. At this time, no arrests have been made and no charges have been laid.
Welcome back to my channel, Jamaica Roots TV. Thanks for taking the time to join me on this video. We're going to be looking at Danielle Rowe's case again, but this time I'm going to be comparing it to Niveah Tucker. So this is a younger child that was found DEAD in Toronto in a dumpster. A story of unwavering dedication by the police officers of Toronto. An extraordinary journey that unfolded in the heart of Toronto. For 1 year, the disappearance of this 4-year-old angel was shrouded in mystery. It left the city in anguish, and they were searching desperately for answers. And people were probably losing hope, right? But the officers kept going. They never stopped. They never wavered. They wanted to make sure that this child was identified. So when it seems like nothing is going to happen, a breakthrough happened. A breakthrough emerged. Because the officers never let up, they kept showing her sketches. They kept calling press conferences and letting the public know that this little girl was found in a dumpster in Toronto in May last year, 2022. And they kept that in the public's eye, right, so to speak. They made sure that the citizens never forgot her. And finally, there was a breakthrough. As I said, she is of maybe Caribbean descent or African descent. And she was found with some African blankets around her. She's now been identified. Her name is Niveah Tucker. And now that she's been identified, the police can go full force now in their investigation and find out the how, why, when, where, right? And get the case solved. They decided they're not going to leave this case alone until this kid is identified. This is testament to the power of unity, the strength of the community, and the unyielding commitment to justice. Danielle Rowe, what happened to her? The atrocity that happened to her as a little kid taken out of school. You know, this is just heart-rending, right? The teachers and the people who are in charge, they were not able to identify the person who took her. But she ended up at number 1 Roosevelt Avenue, and this is an abandoned building. The next thing is the government should try to get rid of these abandoned buildings. They're unsafe for the community. So we don't know if other victims were ever taken to that location. They must really investigate this place and make sure that nothing like this ever happened in this abandoned building. It should be removed if the owner is not going to renovate it or get it occupied. Abandoned buildings pose a threat to the citizens, right? Because people go in there and do all sort of things and you're not able to see them, right? So the community stood together until this kid was identified, right? So we have to say kudos to the law enforcement and their incredible dedication and tireless work that they put in to keep this story in the public's eye. And I have to say kudos to the other YouTubers as well, because they are the ones who are plugging at this as well. The authorities need to step it up and make sure that this kid is not forgotten. So together, let's shine that light in the darkest corners and stand united for the voices that were once silenced. So all the kids that were silenced, let's stand together. You must have seen, heard something. All the cold cases, if you did, try to figure out a way where you can get without you being identified. That's the only way they're going to solve a lot of these things that have gone cold, and they're not keeping them in the public's eye. Every so often, they should be coming out and doing press conferences and showing those missing pictures and telling the public, please, if you know anything about this, have you seen this person? That should be kept alive. Once a month, all the missing people, they should be coming forward with their pictures and videos and running that, because you know that thousands of eyes are better than just a couple eyes, because somebody somewhere may have seen something, heard something. But you have to keep it going, keep it fresh in the minds of the citizens. If you just leave it like that, then nothing will get solved, right? So we're glad that Niveah has been identified. Niveah Tucker is now identified, and they can now try to get this case solved. Because, of course, they're going to have some type of document on this kid somewhere, right? So we're just praying that, everything will go well and they're able to get this case solved in short order. So the initial investigation is like the step-by-step breakdown typically of a case like this is initial investigation. So when a child is reported missing, law enforcement agency initiate an investigation. They collect information about the child, including physical description, last known whereabouts, and any potential leads or circumstances. Public awareness. The police disseminate information about the missing child to the public. So they go to the public and they're, telling them all that they know about the child, right? Through various channels. You can use social media, the regular news media, community outreach programs, flyers put up in neighborhoods and all of that, right? This includes sharing the child's description, photographs, any relevant details that might assist in locating the child. Too many times we hear that this person has gone missing and in 2-3 days nothing else is done, right? We need to stop that. We need to keep the child's face in the media. Sketches and images. If there is a limited or no recent photographic evidence of the missing child, investigators may work with forensic artists to create sketches or digital representations based on descriptions from witnesses or family members. These images are widely circulated to generate leads and aid in identification. So media coverage of law enforcement agencies, coordinate with the media outlets to ensure maximum coverage. So they want it on as many lips as possible, talking about this child, right? News reports, press conferences, interviews. This helps raise awareness and prompt potential witnesses to come forward with information. Witnesses have to be protected and they have to be given that coverage, right? That protection that does not identify them, especially in a climate like Jamaica. They want to make sure that their names and faces are never known to the public, right? Or known to anyone. To be comfortable with that, knowing that their faces and identification will never be released before they give information, right? So there's ways around that. Crime Stop and you don't identify yourself and all of that, right? So tips and leads, members of the public, right? So tips and leads, members of the public play a crucial role in providing tips and leads to the police, because many of these cases, it's the public that helps solve these cases, right? They depend on them to come forward with information, suspicious activity, any relevant knowledge of the case, and of family members, friends, anybody, right? So the investigators now would put all of that together and thoroughly analyze it. Sometimes you need to just go back and jog certain memory, jog the person memory, sit down with them and let them step by step, recant the story again. So follow up on investigation. Once a tip or lead is received, law enforcement agency initiate follow-up investigations. This involves conducting interviews, analyzing the evidence, collaborating with other agencies and jurisdictions, and utilizing forensic techniques to gather the information and narrow down the search. As I mentioned, they should not put this down. This is something that rocked us, right? Rocked everyone. How can this happen to an 8-year-old child? Did she manage to run away from them and run into the road? But I can't see, it could happen, but can you see an 8-year-old child running directly into traffic, into the road? Or was she running on the sidewalk, trying to wave down cars or trying to get someone's attention? It was reported that she ran into the traffic, although these reports change so often, because at one point you were hearing that she was thrown from a vehicle, and then the next thing we heard is that she ran into traffic trying to get help, right? So sad. We don't know what is the truth anymore. After 1 year of being found in a dumpster in May of 2022 in Toronto, and the police providing a sketch of her, how she would have looked when she was alive. And of course, the blanket that was found with her, blanket had African prints. So they're thinking she may be of African descent or Caribbean descent, possibly, to, I guess, mean like immigrants, right? That are living in Toronto, that would be, of Black origin, right? So, and that little girl is a little Black girl. So I started to dig into the news and found out that it was a company from Texas that they went to identify this little girl, because they've been putting it out in the media. They were relentless. They did work and they were getting no leads. So they contacted this company in Texas, and they, specialize in a special type of DNA testing, and they're able to do a lot of traces, and therefore she was identified that way. On May 2nd, just to recap, she was found in a dumpster in the Rosedale area of Toronto. Police have no idea who she is or where she's from. So on June 29th, fast forward to 2023, she has now been identified as Niveah Tucker, age 4, of Toronto. They were able to pinpoint her age, and of course, they were right on the money, right? They didn't even give between 4 and 6. They said she was 4. So they have their testing that they would have done to determine her age, right? Because I guess you could do certain tests to figure out the age of a person, right? Friday, a Texas company that helped the Toronto police solve the riddle of her identity, despite having very little evidence. So this is an advanced genetic testing company called Othram Inc. Explained how it constructed a detailed genetic profile that aided investigators and ultimately led them to a positive identification. And this is from City News. Technology that can go far beyond the capabilities of traditional forensic labs to piece together or more fulsome genetic profile. Built a DNA profile, and unlike the conventional profiles that the traditional forensic lab tests produce that got like 20 markers in it, they were building profiles that have hundreds and thousands of markers. So we can learn a lot from the information about biogeographical ancestry, and the Toronto Police Service can use these profiles. So Othram CEO Dr. David Mittelman phone interview on Friday. So he was explaining to the City News channel how they were able to identify this child by doing her DNA. Once police have detailed DNA profile, they then begin searching for matches throughout the DNA sites where people have voluntarily submitted samples of their DNA. Right? So law enforcement can upload a profile that get matched against people that are both genetic relatives and also consenting to be matched. Not everyone wants to do it, and those initial matches are what starts the investigation off. So you get a first clue, which is some distant genetic relatives to start building your family tree from. So they identified some type of distant relative, and then they build from there. They ID'd the family. Once they ID'd the family and specifically they get a mother, then most of that, who is she is solved. Right now they know who she is. Now it's going to be determined how and why. How did she get into that dumpster, and who would have done it? They will continue to investigate, but the big thing is now our family has been identified. Careful, they're not saying too much, and they're continuing their investigations. Tap into this high-tech DNA company in Texas. So I'm just bringing this to show you that if we continue to go at this thing and not let the Danielle Rowe's case go cold, there must be someone somewhere out there with some type of information. Send out a reward, do something. The authorities, the government has to now start putting in some more work and putting out rewards and encouraging people to call in to get this case solved. This kid was taken from a government institution and taken to 1 Roosevelt Avenue. Why Roosevelt Avenue? It's an abandoned place. Why is it abandoned? And the government should dig into that, and not just for this particular abandoned building, but start looking at either getting in touch with the owners so that they renovate their property, or get them taken down because they pose a threat to society, especially for the younger people and kids like that, because that people go into abandoned buildings to get cover from the public's eyes and the public's views, right? They can do whatever they want in abandoned buildings and nobody will see anything, right? So they pose a threat. They have to be either renovated or removed, and that's up to the government. Thank you so much for joining me on this video. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Take care of yourself and others. Bye for now.